Hey everybody, this is the second video in this series for building apps using the sec tools list of applications. So in this particular video I just want to quickly cover the general setup and of your environment and what sort of what you can do to configure the app itself, and then pushing the changes to Google Code. First things first, in the general setup thing, what we generally want to consider is that like everybody, to use Backtrack 5. If you're not using Backtrack 5, then your mileage will vary. Of course, many of these tools are Linux based, and so they should work on just about any distribution, but Backtrack already has them installed. It saves you time from mucking around with trying to get the tool to work right. Also, we want to make sure that we can communicate with the virtual machine and install a Splunk forwarder. First, you can see that I've got multiple virtual machines in my VM library here, so I'm going to start Backtrack 5. One of the things that I like to do is, once Backtrack is started, is I don't really like to mess around with the window within VMware. I feel like it just sort of slows me down. It's a preference thing, but what we're going to do is we're actually going to SSH into this virtual machine. That'll validate for us that we can actually talk to it over the network, and that'll also gives us a couple of advantages with respect to copying and pasting things and so on. Backtrack is booted up. What I'm just going to log in with. In this case, I just have the default username and password, and really all I care to know at this point is what's the IP address of this system. It's at 129.130, and so I'm just going to flip back over here, and I want to SSH to that particular IP address. And I'm going to be logging in as root, so I just want to prepend that. So now we're on that Backtrack system. So the next thing that we want to know is we want to make sure that the Splunk forwarder is installed. I'm not going to step through that, but the general idea is just ensure that the forwarder is there in the first place. I just want to check in my case if the Splunk forwarder is here. It looks like it's there, but is it running, or is it not running? And in this case, it's running. One of the things that I stumble upon a couple times, you want to keep track of it, is once you do install the Splunk forwarder from the command line, make sure you use the enable boot start flags for Splunk, so that as you shut down and reboot these machines, the information keeps coming up time and time again, so that you're not busy troubleshooting something else. Let me see here. So the next thing is that we're going to take a look at hping. As you can see, I've got a couple different hping variation commands that I've already looked up just to expedite the making of this video. So in his very basic form, hping allows you to ping a particular IP address. You can ping it via UDP, you can ping it via TCP. If you want to know more about hping, in this case we're using hping2, you can just use the man page and get some idea that it will tell you it's not just about pinging something. You can play some interesting games with TCP flags and ICMP message types and so on and so forth. So after playing around with hping a little bit, what I noticed over and over again is there's a key value pair set of information, and also that there's a few commands that I can use to output the hping output to a text file. So really what I narrowed it down to is that this is probably one of the more useful ways in which hping can be used. Of course, people are going to use it in different ways. In this case, I'm going to ping another machine that's part of my virtual machine farm. I'm using this -c flag here to limit the number of times I ping it. Anyone who uses it will probably do that unless they're just letting hping go crazy. So what we're going to do now is, just for the sake of our little application here, I want to make sure that using hping I can actually write this information to a text file, and so I'm just going to run that and see if that text file can be written to. And so then we can just do a cat on temp hping2, and looks like that file is being written to. We know what the hping output actually looks like. Now we can see that its key value pair, and that the first line looks kind of like a header, but it's not really a header, but it is going to be present every time we run hping. So what we want to do is we want to ensure that we preserve that first line each time hping runs, right? And so every time we collect it, we want to know, we want to get the information from that first line as well. So now what we're going to do is it's time to build the app itself. So there's this particular app, or TA, or whatever you like to call it, really only has two components. It's going to have a props.conf, so I can define how I want to take that input that's coming in, and it's just going to have an app.conf, so that Splunk knows that it is an app, that this is an app, and that's what's gonna that's what it's gonna have. So for your purposes here, if I've already done this, but if you want to take a look with respect to what my hping2 directory has, is basically there's a default directory, there's an app.conf, and then there is a props.conf that's associated with it. So for the app.conf, for example, you can see there's nothing too sophisticated in here. It's basically essentially a default app setup, where I'm just specifying in the UI, whether it's visible. I've made it false so that it doesn't appear on the web UI dropdown. For the installed state, I've marked as enabled and marked as configured to true, and build as one. This is really optional. You can remove this. I always put this in the apps, and then there's a package ID for just to say that this is an hping2 package ID, and then really that's it. And then from a props.conf perspective, fairly simple, straightforward. Props.conf, let me just do that again, where we're just saying that it should not merge lines, because we do have multiple lines in here, and that also that we don't want the record to be truncated. The reason why I have this line breaker, which is actually never match, is so that this entire file that Splunk forwards over is actually maintains itself as one record. And so when we'll do a search against Splunk, so we'll see that it comes out as one singular record. So one of the things that we want to do now is, now that we have our props and we have that and we've got it installed, and we can restart Splunk to make sure, or do a debug refresh, whatever your favorite mechanism is to get the app loaded into Splunk. Now we should add this particular temp file to the monitor list. And so I've already got a monitor command copied and pasted over here from before, and so what we have here is, oops, let me just move this over just a little bit, might be easier to see, is that we're adding the monitor for that particular file. In this case it says var log messages. We certainly don't want that. We want the temp hping file that we had created, that we had tested with earlier, and so we're saying that we want that file to be we want that monitor to be of source type hping2. Maybe you guys have seen this. I didn't know about this until about maybe a couple of weeks ago, when I realized that I could just add source types right on the command line. So now that monitor has been added, so anytime that file is written to, we will get we should be able to see it in Splunk. So back on our Splunk system, what we can do now is we can just run a RT search, Splunk RT search for the for anything that's coming in source type hping2. Should prompt us for credentials, and now that search is running. So we just scroll up a few here and come back to writing our hping. The single arrow, as many of you know, will just overwrite if there is an existing hping2 file. So this way, each new hping run will result in writing of a new file. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm saying I want to use hping2 against this machine 129.133 with the count. I want to send 3 packets out with the source port of 2133 and a destination port of 445, and want to send the result out. So we run that. That run should complete. And now you can see within Splunk the complete output for that record. So we can do the same thing over and over again. we can try and go up against another system, maybe 130 for example. Don't know what's going to happen there, but and so you can see that it keeps coming up, and this is of course because of my fat fingering of a new character in there is why this little guy is there. And that's it. And so at this point, we know the app works, we've got the thing integrated, and now it's time to upload that to our Git repo. If you, I will save that portion for another video just so you can get started right now. If you don't have a Google account, a Google Code account, or a Google account in general, please create one. Otherwise, if you don't want to create one because it's a hassle, you have to manage another account, just send me an email with the directory or whatever app that you're working on, and then we can take it from there. I hope this was helpful. Good luck, and let me know if you have questions.